On this video, an expert reveals exactly how to sell your business for more.
So Alexis, when we spoke before, we talked about the importance of having systems and working on the business rather than in the business and documenting everything, because that is the path to greater profits, greater efficiency. And if we're going to buy several businesses, that is the only way to make that integration work. Now, I want to switch gears slightly and talk about selling a business. So if you sell a business, for most people, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think with my masterminders, my deal makers, they're going to be doing it quite a few times over the coming years. But when you're selling a business, you want to get that optimal value. What is the secret of getting the best value when you sell a business?
Yeah, so I'd say that there's a few ways in which you increase the value of the business to the person acquiring it, but of course one of the key ways, essentially, it's confidence of future cash flow. Like if the person acquiring the business can be confident that the business that they're buying will still be around and producing the same or more money in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, that has a huge impact on essentially the multiple that the acquirer is willing to pay, because they have that confidence.
100% agree.
And so the less confidence that they have, and it's going to decrease the valuation of that business. So how do you increase that confidence? Well, you have to reduce the risk of the cash flow disappearing. So what are the sorts of things that can do that? Well, you've got the fact that what if key members of staff leave and things start not operating in the way that they should? Like you have a key salesperson that leaves and now you're not getting any new customers, or you have a key person who is your account manager leaves and now you've got a load of customers that aren't very happy in the way that they're being managed, or so key members of staff leaving is a key cause of risk, and particularly when you're acquiring, because the concern is that the business owner had got the relationships and so on.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So by having processes in place, it means that you can be much more confident that the business will continue to run even if you have some of those team members leave, because you can just take another person in. And
so it becomes easier to recruit, easier to train.
Yeah, train and onboarding and so on.
And therefore it becomes less about the individual person and more about the process that the person operates.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And it even means that the acquirer might, even if the acquirer thinks, I'm not that impressed by some of the people in this organization that I'm planning on buying, but at least if the processes are there, they can say, well, if I bring in some A players, I think this business could really sing, which increases the valuation because they see the potential and so on.
Very good.
So if we're talking about reducing the risk that cash flows dry up, one of which is key team members, as a related but different angle is, what about the business owner? Normally, when someone's selling a business, they're not planning on staying in it. They don't sell the business and then go, excellent, I'm now going to
I've now got a job.
Yeah, I've now got a job.
I'm always amazed when owners who are selling suggest that, because I just don't understand it. I don't think they actually have any intention of following through on it, because once they've got some money, they want to go off on the world cruise.
Of course.
So the owner exiting is a degree of risk when you're buying, but also it's a degree of risk for the buyer of your business when you are selling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so for them, the risk and the concern, and this even before the transaction takes place, will be, if I buy this business and that business owner either steps out because they've exited, or even if you've got an earnout, like, are they really going to be that interested? Maybe they're okay with the 50% up front or whatever it was agreed, or maybe just they're not going to be that motivated, or they're going to get frustrated with the changes I want to make in the business, because I'm not going to keep their best friend from school in the sales team and so on.
Yes.
And the worry is, what does it mean when that person leaves? When that business owner comes out, am I going to not have some of my key processes? If they're doing all the finances, or the invoicing.
So from the buyer's perspective of your business, they'll see that as a high risk area, and will therefore reduce the valuation to compensate for the risk. So I suppose if we can convince our future buyer that it is not a point of weakness, then we're going to increase our value.
Indeed. And not only that, you may even get into a point where they don't feel feel a need or have an expectation that there's going to need to be an earnout, or that you're going to need to be able to stick around, because you're able to be transparent and say, here's how the business works. Here's our documented processes. You can see how it works. And in fact, you can get to the point like I have with one of my software businesses, or my first software business, where I'm extracted from the day to day. I can show that I'm not required here.
Yes.
And as a result, they can be confident that,
Yes.
I believe that when I buy this, I'm not suddenly going to have to step into a load of roles, and that increases the value. It increases the financial value, but also for the seller, it means that you're much more likely to be able to do the exit that you want, which for most people, they want to sell and then get out and do the other thing that they want to do. Whether it's the new business idea that they've got, whether it's acquiring another business, whether it's taking some well-earned holiday.
Retirement.
Or retire. Your aim isn't normally to stay in the business 1, 3, 5 years. And if it is, you may as well hold the business and take profit out.
So this is really interesting, because if you've got a business that is dependent upon the owner, without a doubt that is going to suppress value. So what we need to do then is to remove the owner from the day-to-day running of the business genuinely, not just do it for appearance's sake. Now, that means that even if you don't sell your business, you have a business that's operating without you. And the stress of business operation often causes a seller to become distressed and therefore accept a lower value. And even though that's great when you're buying, you don't want that to be you when you are selling.
Absolutely. And so for so many business owners, we've worked with clients of ours. I remember one in particular, he'd gone from 18 members of staff to 42 members of staff in 18 months. Now, for most business leaders, that's like, wow, what a successful guy. Like, what an incredible business growth. And that was organic, not even through acquisition, right? And you go, wow, that's amazing. But I could see it in his eyes. So I asked the question. I said, and are you enjoying it? And of course, the answer is no. And it's like, what's
nightmare.
the point? Yeah, exactly. Then that's a nightmare. And of course, he would then be in a situation, if someone came along and said, hey, do you want 1 times your profit or whatever?
He would just say,
take
it off my hands.
Yeah, I just need out. And of course, the ridiculous thing is that when we then worked with him, within 3 calls, we had freed up a day and a half a week of his time from working in the business. And we then worked with him through one of our accelerator package, where we essentially documented all of his activity, so that as a result, he's then not doing like 4 or 5 days of working in the business that he was previously doing per week. And of course, we didn't bring some incredible intellect around the type of business that he's in. We came and just said, we're going to document what you're doing, get it out of your head, get it passed to other people.
Yeah.
And
you didn't invent anything new.
No.
You just took everything that he was doing, put it on paper, or put it on a virtual paper, and made it in such a way that someone else could do it, or even eliminated steps in the process to make it a slimmer process, and therefore a more efficient business.
Yeah, and so there absolutely were opportunities to make it more efficient. The hilarious thing is you don't even need those to get the value. Typically, particularly when you're taking a business leader's time and freeing up, in our case, typically we expect to save a business leader 15 hours per week within a series of 3-4 hours spent with us. So you imagine that. You spend 4 hours with a consultant who is literally documenting processes that you're spending most of your time on doing, and you're getting those handed over to someone else, even without any efficiency improvements. We do make them, but even without it, you're suddenly a business owner that's got an extra, basically 2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Which in terms of discretionary time, by the way, is more than that, because, of course, time gets taken up in one-to-ones with team members, stuff that has to happen, answering emails, da-da-da. And so actually, in terms of your intellectual, creative time that you can work on the business rather than it, it's exponentially more, right? It's basically getting 90% more of that thinking space. And so when you do that, as a seller of a business, you're making it possible for others to buy it and have confidence that they can run it and all that kind of stuff without them having a job in it. But also you may well decide, actually, I don't feel as motivated to sell it. Like I can keep it going, or
Yeah,
I can work on growing it, where perhaps previously we were starting to stagnate.
Yeah, and often people say they're too busy to grow their business, or they're too busy to actually get any work done. That's the other
indeed.
thing. Yeah. I can absolutely see the benefit of that, because if you're selling and you can demonstrate that not only are you not actively involved in the business on a day-to-day basis, but this is how the business runs. This is the operations manual for the business. So what does it actually end up looking like? Is it a ring binder?
Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully.
So I wouldn't recommend a ring binder, although if we were to use it as a sort of analogy, to some extent, it's, we are literally documenting what was created so that you can all look at it and have a single source of the truth. Now, various problems with ring binders: not searchable, so it takes a long time to find the right thing. Very difficult to update. You can add a bit of pencil, but you can't change it. Very difficult for someone to use to follow. If they start ticking things off, then Janet will get very annoyed that when she comes to use it, all the boxes have been ticked and so on.
Yes.
So obviously, now that we're in 2023, probably a good idea to have all that stuff online, particularly if you then have a fire or a flood.
Are you trying to tell me that my way of doing things is a little bit out of date?
I'm sorry, Jonathan, but the ring binder business that you've acquired must go. So instead, we'd recommend, you need it online in some format. The reason we built AirManual as a software business for this is because we found that the tools that are out there for doing this kind of stuff, getting it on your Google Docs, your Dropbox Paper, your Asana, whatever it is, they're not fit for purpose for the stuff. They're not designed for it, and so fair enough. What you need is some kind of way of capturing it that is easy to document, that you don't spend loads of time just sorting out the formatting to make it look good, as you might in Word with a table or whatever. You also need it really easy to follow, which means that it needs to be interactive. Someone needs to be able to use the checklist and tick things off and be able to come back where they left off, but be able to do that multiple times for the same checklist without affecting the template, right? Like if you imagine the ring binder version, if someone ticks it off, now someone else can't tick that off. Like you need the equivalent of photocopying. But you also need the ability to update it really quickly. And that those updates affect all of the active checklists that people are using, so you can continue to improve. And so really, when we help businesses in the way that we do, sort out the processes and so on, to some extent, we're creating a process culture. We're creating a business that consciously documents its ways of working, follows those, continuously improves them, and so on. The tool is just about removing friction. It's because if you have the friction in the way, people don't follow the processes. I couldn't find the process, so I didn't follow
I couldn't find the ring binder.
Exactly, I couldn't find the ring binder. Yeah, Sally had it. Or that they don't update it. It's like, but we said that we were going to add that question in step 2 so that we didn't have this problem. I know, but I forgot. I'll add it to my to-do list. I'll do it later. It's like, you need to be able to literally just click edit and go, right, we've changed it, we've agreed it. Everyone happy that in future sales calls, that's the question we're going to ask. Great, done. For future, you never have that problem. And that's one of my favourite things. Slight tangent, but one of my favourite things were like with onboarding new team members is that if they ask me a question or they say, oh, this is a bit confusing, it says this, but then it says this, I'll go, that's a really good point. And I'll give them the answer. And then I'll say, right now, please update the onboarding checklist.
Okay, so everyone has the benefit of that.
Exactly, which means that I never have to repeat the same answers to questions. I never have to deal with the same repeated mistakes. And those are often the biggest stresses for business leaders, is that it's Groundhog Day, right? Most people in your audience that are buying businesses, for some of them, sure, there's financial benefit, but often it's about growth. It's about interesting stuff. You don't get that if you're having to deal with the same questions, the same problems every day. And of course, then you become a motivated seller if you just I'm bored of this. And in fact, the business owner I mentioned earlier, who had grown it from 18 to 42 and was hating it, one of the biggest things that was taking up his time, repeated questions and issues, same S, but different day, right? And so how do you avoid that? You make it so that the teams that are in the business, whenever mistakes are happening, you're able to go and root cause and say, well, where in the process did we cause this mistake? Make the change, never have the mistake again. And the first time you do it, maybe that mistake doesn't happen that often. You don't really notice. But over time, you get to a point where you maybe are getting a question once every 6 months or once a year rather than every
I know many
day.
business owners who are anxious as they arrive at the office because they know that there'll be a queue of people waiting for them saying, can I have your opinion on this? What do I do here? I've got this customer wants this. So in terms of onboarding new members of staff, absolutely get that. Can we still use it though for onboarding clients?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we've got as an accountancy client that we work with, MBS Accountants, fantastic group, where they're really, really highly regarded in terms of what they do and so on. But they stopped onboarding and taking new clients on because they were frustrated with how many drop balls and mistakes there were in their client onboarding process. Imagine that. You've got a business that has got literally clients queuing up to work with them and they're not taking them on because of these problems. And so what we did was we helped them document their client onboarding processes so that, because it involves multiple team members, right? It's not just one person end to end. You've got the bookkeeper, you've got the tax person, you've got, all these sorts of different people. And so what you've got is when you've got that transparency of the process and how it flows, it meant that everyone involved is able to see step-by-step checklists. Like, sometimes we talk about processes and it's this ethereal thing. We are talking about literal step-by-step checklists that each person has got that takes the client from A to B and then the handover to the next person and B to C and so on, which means that they don't have the drop balls. And it enabled them to identify mistakes they weren't even aware were happening. They even identified that there was a particular VAT thing that was meant to happen, and they were saying, but hang on, why are you having to do this step way down here, late in the process? And they realized that there was a member of the team that didn't even know that they were meant to be doing that as step 4 or something. Didn't even know. And so, and all these problems that were created for every single client onboarded because that was being missed. And of course it'd be easy to go, oh, Jane, why didn't you do this? Why don't you just, I've heard business leaders on calls that I've been attending kind of lose, that frustration just builds up to the point that they say, I just need you to be A, and then role name, right? I just need you to be a salesperson. And here's the problem. That person at the other end goes, right, I'm trying to be, but at no point have you told me that I'm meant to do X, Y, and Z that you feel are things that I should be doing, right?
Or it was mentioned in passing in a conversation 6 months ago, and the owner thinks you now know it. You now realise
I told you it, therefore it's been committed to memory.
I told you it amongst 10 other things that I told you, but I didn't tell you that was the most important thing.
And you understood it completely in all of its faceted, nuanced thing. Yeah, exactly right.
When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and his details are on the screen.
And so, we often say attack the process, not the person. Whenever a mistake happens,
nice
frustration. Start with what went wrong in our process that meant that this problem happens. And so, when you're doing that with, as you say, when you're onboarding people, when you're supporting onboarding clients, you can look at where are the mistakes happening, and as a result, how can we improve those stages by doing that. And as a result, it meant that the accountancy that we work with, they were able to start taking on new clients. Fantastic, but even better, they're able to do it without the involvement of the two husband-wife business owner as part of that process, which means that they're able to be on holiday or working on growing the marketing and so on, whilst the business is still onboarding clients. But also, it's funny, I had a conversation with another client who told me they'd started working with MBS, and he didn't even know that we were working with them. And he said, the client onboarding process was so smooth. And so
really?
And so he was basically saying, I'd love to have an experience like that in my business for my clients. And so it's that's awesome, because it's not just about reducing mistakes. It's not just about freeing yourself up as a business leader. It's about fundamentally improving your service and your performance and everything. The impact it can have is huge. And when we're talking about sales and or selling your business and increasing the value, we've talked quite a bit around the reducing the risk of losing the cash flows, key members, team, business leader coming out the business. But also, when you have those processes in place, like for client onboarding is a great example, the acquirer, if they have grandiose plans of 10xing the business, why wouldn't they? Because they'd be thinking, look, I want to buy this business to grow it. if they can look at it and go, well, I can see that you've got really good client onboarding, operations, and so on. As a result, I feel confident that if I bring my marketing expertise to 10x your leads, this is a business that can fly and be 10x the value. Again, increasing the value to them. So even if, as the seller, you're saying, look, I have no idea how to get more leads into this business. I've done everything I can think of. I just can't work it out. I feel like we're going to plateau.
But you have
if
documented
you've got everything
the
else in
process.
place.
So someone else would look at that process and say, I know how I can enhance that process. Yeah, very interesting. I love this. I think this is the missing link for many people buying and selling businesses. And you've made it very accessible. And I think that many people will want to contact you as a result of this interview. How do they do that?
Well, I would encourage them to do so.
Fantastic.
So I guess in terms of contacting us, people can go to our website at airmanual.co. They can find out more. They can arrange a discovery call with one of our consultants which is free, to explore what are the challenges that they've got. Is AirManual a good fit and all that kind of stuff. And so I highly recommend people do that, because we've found that people have even got value from that call, even before they go any further, because people struggle to get it out of their head.
They're going to get value. Even if they don't proceed, exactly. They're going to get value anyway.
Because we help you get clear on what the blocker is, like what's taking up your time, causing the stress, holding back your growth. It's there. So I'd highly recommend people do that. If they don't feel quite ready to have that discussion, I recommend that they check out, I do regular webinars at airmanual.co/webinar. You can find out the next one. We've also got the De-Stress Your Business podcast, where you can get loads of free guidance, and we go deep into things like how to make your recruitment process really good to get A players, how to process thousands of candidates, how to onboard a team member in days rather than months, how to manage new team members, all these sorts of things. So there's the De-Stress Your Business podcast, and people can connect with me on social media. I'm on pretty much all of them, mainly on LinkedIn, Alexis Kingsbury. You can find me there, and I'm sharing regular content about these sorts of topics, so please do reach out.
Amazing. Alexis, thank you very much for your time. Very, very interesting indeed, and I look forward to working with you.
Me too. Thank you very much, Jonathan.